Good morning. We are going to do the 2024 tax season advanced tax preparation training. I am Brittany, the tax instructor through the CAS Coalition. I do want to start off by saying any practice lab scenarios that we are doing today are all fictitious and made up. We do make up the information. Any social security numbers or any personal information will be fake. So we'll get going. So the first one is an overview of what to expect as a tax prep volunteer. Most of you know this from your basic certification. And this one is to go over your advanced certification and important tax prep relevance and related topics to the advanced certification. You can take the advanced certification you cannot take the advanced certification until you have completed and passed the standards of conduct, intake, interview and quality review, and basic certification. So in order to do it, you got to take those first two tests, the basic exam, pass all three, and then you can click on advanced. The advanced certification will not appear until they are all complete. What to expect as a tax prep volunteer: you have legal protections from the IRS. You cannot be sued. That's one of the perks of being part of VITA. You never have to prepare alone. We are all here to help. We are all a team. We sometimes you'll hear us here asking, hey, where'd you find this? They moved it, or some people are like, hey, I don't know. Can you come over and help? That's no problem. We're always here to help. Your safety is our top priority. We have hand sanitizer, masks. Do believe we have gloves here as well. And that, we don't want anybody to worry about COVID. You don't technically need to meet with a client either, so you don't have to worry about that as well. The advanced test is more challenging than what you will typically see at the site. I can definitely vouch for that. They threw everything but the kitchen sink in the advanced testing this year. But I want to say a good 75 to 80% of what you will be learning will not apply to what you'll be seeing here at a VITA site. Occasionally you may see something, but very rarely. What we need from you: all VITA sites, you need to provide proof of passing your various certification levels, which is the form 13615. That needs to be handed to your site coordinator here at Peace. It's Sharon or Ralph. The next thing is the tax alert binder. We do ask that you review and make sure that there's no new updates in our binder, and that you sign off that you read the alert if there is one, just so that we know that you understand that something has changed in the current tax year that may be applicable to a tax return that you are preparing. At Peace Inc., we require at least 10 tax returns for the community. That does not include yours or your family. So we need 10 of the community's tax returns completed. We also need you to, which will be right next to our tax alert binder, volunteer sign in and sign out. That allows us to get credit for in-kind hours and community investments, so we can provide proof to our funders so we can get money to keep our program going. What to expect on your advanced certification. If you're taking advanced, you are familiar with the link learntaxescertification.com, where you will take your testing, and you can find underneath that quick links your practice lab. You have 2 attempts to pass, just like on basic. You must have 24 of the 30 questions correct. You have to complete the volunteer standards of conduct, intake, quality review, and basic certification before you can take the advanced test. Some initial advanced questions that don't include a full practice return. You will see, just like with basic, in a few seconds, I have gone through and helped you out there. And then a few scenarios that follow do require you to complete a couple practice labs, just like you did in the basic. So go ahead. As you see, for each scenario in advance, I give you the section in which you can find it corresponding to the question. So each bullet is a new question. And I've done that 1 through, I believe it's 6. And then 7 begins your practice lab for advance. And same thing, I have each bullet is a question. Darkened bullet, I should say, is a question. You'll see either it's the 4012 where you can find it within your book, or the 1040 is in the you need to do the practice lab to find it on the 1040. And I have given you a line in which you can find it, or in between the line. I've done that for 7, 8, and 9. So that will help you guys relatively find where an answer is. If you are not sure, you can always give us a call. You can come in and we can go over things. I do want to say, don't stress. It's just like basic. Don't stress. We're always here for help. The IRS assigns the questions and scenarios for the practice labs to be challenging. They want to make sure that when you are doing a tax return, you feel comfortable to be able to do it here at a VITA program. Most of the advanced returns won't be as complicated as what you see in the advanced certification. Please do not get stressed. We are here to help. I've said this a million times. There are so many people here. Even some of our volunteers are great with helping out other volunteers and finding things. So please do not get stressed. Just like we did in the basic, you'll see returning taxpayers, this is what has changed during the tax season. We will keep this updated. Even for new tax preparers, if you read these, you'll find out some of your answers for your testing if you read this, and you'll be familiar with it. So if you go ahead and keep going, our practice labs can be found on PSYNC's website at the www.peace-caa.org/taxes. This is how you can find all of the materials, the schedules, the workbooks, and the book to find your answers in that 4012, and also the training labs that we'll be doing advanced. This is just like basic. So if you're in this advanced part of the course, you'll already be familiar with all of these. Just like before, we have included a chart of who must file with income limits. We always do say that they should come in and file anyways, even if they make under this, as you may still be eligible for certain credits that you're not aware of, and you may even get some money back in state dependent on your filing. This is the determination of filing status decision tree. If it's like a no, yes, you just follow it. If you were married on the last day of the year and you say yes, you need to go follow the arrow for the yes line. If no, you're going to keep on following that no to the next question and then answer it no, yes, and just keep on following that way, which will then give you if you should be filing head of household, single, qualifying spouse, or married, filing jointly or separately. Like before, we do go over what qualifies a taxpayer to be head of household. This is extremely important, especially at VITA sites. We have a lot of our clients who file for head of household here. So a single individual with dependents under the age of 17. There is an exception to this rule if the dependent is a full-time student in a college or university, disabled, or you support them more than 50%. You do need to make sure that the relative or the person they are claiming meets that head of household decision tree for a qualifying dependent. A married couple who has been living together during the current tax year does not qualify as head of household, even if they are filing separately. They must either use filing jointly or filing separately. This is extremely important. We have some couples that say, oh, my wife doesn't work or my husband doesn't work. I support them fully. Your spouse is a spouse. You cannot claim head of household. You have to claim married. We've had to have this conversation a few times. A spouse is a spouse. You are legally equals. So it doesn't matter who's bringing in the income in the household. There is an exception for married taxpayers, and this is extremely important because we do have certain cases where this will be applicable. To qualify for head of household without being legally separated or divorced, the spouse must not have lived in the household for 6 months of the year and have a qualifying dependent, which is under, 17 and under. technically it's 16, but they say 17 and under. Example would be a spouse has been incarcerated for 3 years. He's obviously, or she is not bringing in any income into the home. They're not contributing. They haven't been there. Maybe they're waiting for filing for separately or getting paperwork through. This allows the other parent who is providing full support for their children and herself or himself to claim head of household. And that way they're not responsible for the person who's incarcerated or maybe just took off. They have no clue where they are. If there is no qualifying dependents, the taxpayer cannot claim head of household. They are single or they're married or married filing separately at this point. This isn't all dependents. This just gives you a table on how to determine if you have a qualifying child or a qualifying relative dependent. Also can be found in your 4012. Same for children and other dependents. Let's just give some salaries for earned income and unearned income and gross income to give you a chance. Now, I know on the right-hand side, you see what's called kiddie tax for certain children. So children that make, let's say at their job, like $5,000 for the whole year, their parents are supposed to do what's called kiddie tax under income. They will be taxed on this on behalf of their children. So this is something that you may or may not ever really see. I here at Peace have never done one, but I think Ralph has done one or two in the past couple of years. So what's next? We are going to do a practice lab that we have fictitiously made. Ralph's great at making these. So we're going to go ahead and do that today. You can also locate them on our website. I know that in your books, like you've done in your basic test, you'll have 3 there for your advanced. And the IRS also on that practice lab has fictitious extra practice labs that you can do as well if you're not comfortable. You can review videos from our past trainings on YouTube. That also is helpful because you can pause and go at your own pace. You can visit our site and work on them here. That's also at your own pace. So this would be somebody sitting with you and just going over any questions that you may have while you're doing this. You'll take your certifications, standard of conduct, intake interview and quality review, basic certification, and then your advanced to be able to prepare an advanced tax return here at Peace. We do ask that if this is your first time preparing at a VITA site, we are going to ask that, or at all, we're going to ask that you just take your basic, get comfortable in basic, and then if you feel comfortable, you know, let's say halfway through the year and you want to take a swing at advanced, then that's okay. If you're returning, take that advanced. We could use you. So contact your VITA site where you plan to volunteer, schedule your hours and days, get specifics for that location. I know at Peace, we don't really require you to call us ahead that you're coming in. Sometimes they'll be like, hey, we have a bunch of students coming in this weekend. Just let us know if you're going to be here. But other than that, we just ask that you come in and volunteer. And then we will go ahead and get going on the practice lab here. So I am actually going to go ahead and get to that link and learn. Yes. And then under that quick links, you're going to do practice lab. That password's train pro web, just like in basic, it never changes. I am going to change this out real fast to my credentials using my Sharon here at Peace's computer. So I apologize. Give me a second. There's a lot of passwords, so We try to save them as much as possible. I'm gonna go to that practice lab. And we are doing practice return D today. So that's our advanced practice return D. I'm gonna read the scenario and then we will get started. So Susan Oliver is a New York State public sector employee. She has enrolled in an online college course to improve her job skills as a senior accountant. She has never been married. She provides over one-half support for her two qualifying dependent children, Stephanie and Justin, which fictitious social security numbers were provided. She stated she drove for Grubhub on the side. Her W-2 show that she has a health savings account. This is line 12, code W. We see the information on her intake form, 13614-C, part 5, question 1, that it is checked. We ask her how much of that amount or percentage did she contribute. Susan made a $2,300 contribution to her traditional IRA retirement. Oliver prefers direct deposit. She has provided her bank's name, that it's a savings account, routing number, and account number. Miss Oliver presents her itemized deductions for the year, which is a donation to Believers Chapel, and 3 unreimbursed medical expenses to doctors or prescriptions. Her house taxes have been provided for county and school with a star credit of $420. So for this, you're going to go ahead and start your return just like we did in basic, and you're just going to make up a social security number for Susan. Try to do as many zeros as possible. And if you see, like I purposely put an 8 instead of a 9 there to show you that it will come up red if you do mark something wrong and the social security numbers do not match. I did want to put that in there for you guys, that if they don't match and it's red, that's telling you, oops, something's not right. So we do know that Susan's never been married and she has 2 children, Stephanie and Justin. So we're going to go ahead and she makes a qualifying head of household. You're going to fill in her information just like before, like basic and all of your practice labs for basic. It's the same thing. It's data entry. We got to get the information and make sure it's correct. You will find her address just like before on that 13614-C. We call it the yellow form here at Peace. The IRS likes numbers, so if you ever hear us refer it to the yellow form, it's that 13614-C, the intake quality review sheet. So we're going to go ahead and look at her birthday. Her occupation is a senior accountant. And then we have on ours that third page, which is not included on this one. It has a bunch of questions. And if they want to do a contribute to the presidential election fund, which I know I've shown you guys on basic, that would be here, but it looks like she's not contributing. So we can just go ahead and scroll past all of these if they're not applicable. We'll just go ahead and put her address in. Remember, you can abbreviate. This will come in handy, especially when you're doing W-2s. They only allow so many characters. And it's 13202. Her phone number is 315-422-3434. Now, like before, if the client gives you an email, it's going to be on line 12. Go ahead and put it in that primary client email, but please don't put it in this invite to customer portal and send them an invite. This allows them to review their tax return. Here at VITA, we need you to come in and sign them, and you need to be present for us to go over them. If you do this and invite them, they have a tendency to think, oh, I got my tax return back. They're e-filing it and they don't come in and sign for it. I have to have them sign for it in order to e-file. So please just put it in the primary client email. This goes to the IRS. If they have not provided one on that 13614-C, the yellow intake form, but you'll notice some of our other forms, but for Peace or NITA have a place and they did put an email, don't put that email in there. If it's not on that yellow form, that means they don't want the IRS to have their email. But they don't mind Peace having it because we have other programs that we can help them with. So go ahead and continue. So this is county and school districts. So we know we are in Onondaga County. So we're going to go ahead and hit Onondaga County. We know the school district is the city of Syracuse based off the zip code. So that's going to be 631 is the 3-digit code. And then, but if you don't know that, you can just drop down here and just click on S. It'll bring you S's and then go down to Syracuse City School District right here. Hit continue. So we know that Susan does have dependents to claim. So we need to get in there and put, yes, we have dependents. I do want to state that we do need to make sure that we're paying attention to that autofill. Because if you look, Stephanie and Justin have different last names than Susan and last names than each other. This is very common in our sites for children, mothers, and even spouses sometimes to have different last names. They may not have taken their spouse's last name and kept their maiden name. So 2010. The the fictitious social securities numbers were provided for Stephanie and Justin in these case scenarios. So 254691234. We know based off from that intake and quality review in part 2 under dependents that she was a US citizen, that this was her daughter, and that her daughter lived in the house 12 months. So our most common thing here on our intake quality review is if you will see, was this student a full-time student last year? And it says yes, under both Stephanie and Justin. We need to change that to no, because we know that they're in school, especially if they're school age. 2009 and 2010, they would be in 9th and 10th grade at this point. And we know they have to mandatorily go to school. This is just for college students. It just tells us if we need a 1098T. It just prompts us to ask a few more questions if we don't see the form relating to that question. So you're going to put no. The next thing that we need to go over is this is just like basic. If the person was disabled, which we know they were not, if they were 18 and older and in college, this is what you would click. Some people have opposite years for claiming children. It's just easier to check if you wish not to claim this dependent or this income. They made over $4,700. There's just a few things here that they're not your dependent, and for earned income purposes, you have to also check this if you're not a dependent, because the other person that may be claiming them for that year, dependent on how it's set up, will get that earned income if they qualify. So go ahead and continue. We have another one, so we're going to do add a qualifying dependent. You can also do save and enter another one. I prefer hitting continue and adding a new one, just so I don't get a bunch of red marks all over it. So we're going to put Justin. He has a different last name, Andrews. His birthday is 6/4/2009. His fictitious social security number is in that case scenario, so it's 123259512. We know based off from the intake quality review sheet that he is a citizen, that this is her son, Susan's son. He lived in the home 12 months, and that there's no disabilities or other qualifying applicable boxes that we need to check. So we're going to go ahead after you are finished putting this information in and hit continue. Feel free at any point, if you are watching the Zoom, you can pause it to catch up. That way you don't feel like you're getting left behind, and then you can just hit the play again and resume. So go ahead and hit continue for me. There's nothing else we need to do here. We'll hit continue. And we will also hit continue again. And it brings us to our income page. At this point, I just go ahead and make sure that I've done all the yes, no, nothing's unsure, that I have all the correct forms that I need. To this, a lot of people here like to do it before they start the tax return. I just like to get the basic information in there. That way, if I do need to make a phone call, because I am making, like they say, oh, I have this, they are missing that form, I could put it in our waiting file, and at least I can get back in to the tax return, and all that basic information is already done, and I just have to put in what I'm missing. So that you can do it either way. There's no wrong or right way to do it. It just helps you make sure that if there's a yes, we know we need a specific form to that, like a W-2. She has one. So we can go ahead and get to our first one, which is going to be her W-2. So it's just like in your practice labs, for your basic test and the ones that you've already done for basic practice labs, just for practicing. You're going to go ahead with that employer identification number. It's going to be that 146013200 found in box B. As you can tell, it auto-populated. And you're just going to make sure that everything on here matches what's on her W-2. Now, don't be worried about if her address doesn't match on the W-2, because people do move and they have to put the address that the person had when they were working. So the address under Susan Oliver is not so much important. That needs to be what's on the intake form as the employer's address. We need that to match. So just like before, you're going to follow the boxes. Box 1 is the 59,800. Box 2 is 4186. And if you look at box 3, it has changed and does not match. So we have to manually change that to the 57,800 because certain things are not taxed. If you have pre-tax stuff come out of your check. So go ahead and you'll notice that your Social Security changes. And then we got to change Medicare, which is also the 57,800. We know 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and unreported tips are all empty. And then we see box 12. There is a code D. You put the amount, which is 2,000. 12B is DD. It's 14,100. And we have an code W, which we know she has an HSA. And that's 1,800. She does not have a retirement plan, and this is not third-party sick pay. Box 14, it looks like we do have some things. So NYSDI is actually, it needs to say NY non-occupancy disability fund. I don't know why they don't code it that way, but they don't, but that's what it is. And then the NYPFL, which is New York Paid Family Leave, that does not have one, so it's going to be other. Remember, if you have like, let's say United Way underneath there, you're going to add NYPFL and United Way, the amounts together and put it under other as one. They don't allow you to have more than one other line. We're going to go ahead here and do New York State. Now that we have that in. The employer's ID, which is going to be right next to box 15. It's going to be 146013200. And the income tax was $17.94. Now that you have this all filled in and she only has one W-2, we're going to go ahead and continue. Now, what I like to do, which is helpful because I see that code W and that way I don't forget later on. Continue again. I immediately go to the HSA information because I know that that code W prompted me that she has an HSA. So if you go, I believe it's you go to page, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's going to be page 8. It's going to say HSA, Archer, MSA, or Medicare Advantage 5498-SA. But in that form finder in the left-hand corner, as you can see, you can actually type HSA. And you're going to see that we actually have forms here for health savings account. I'm going to click on that first one there. And this is a health savings account. So this is for a 1099 SSA or a 5498 SA. It's for the forms. So we're in the right place. So Susan Oliver, it's just for herself. She does not have it for a family plan. We're going to scroll down a little bit. HSA contributions made for 2013, including those made January 1st through April 15th, 2024, do not include what is on the W-2. We know that the total contributions were $1,800 from the employer, that she did not make based off our interview notes for this scenario. She did not contribute anything. But let's say somebody said, oh, I contributed $5 out of every paycheck. We need to find out if it was weekly or bi-weekly. If it's weekly, you're obviously going to do 5 times the whole year. Plus, if they contributed January 1st through April 15th, 2024. So we're going to go ahead. That's where that would go. But because it's all employee, we don't have to put it. The number of months she was eligible was 12. Amount you and your employer contributed. This is if you and your spouse had a family coverage under a high deductible plan, which she does not. If there's any adjustments on box 12, this typically you won't see. It's from the previous year, just in case something was reported wrong. Qualified funding distributions from an IRA or Roth, it would go here, which she does not. So HSA distributions received during 2023 include those. You'll see that on a 1099 SA. They should bring that in, but that's usually does not happen. We have to do a little bit of searching. Those are questions you're going to have to ask. So the way that I say it is depending on what they say. If they're like, oh, I spent this much out of my HSA for medical bills, like we know with Susan, we know that's how much distribution she had. So for this case, it's going to be 1306 And the medical bills in the case scenario were the doctors of $675, the dentist of $600, and prescriptions of $31. So that equals the $1,306. So that's the qualified medical. They really need to know how much and should have their 1099 SA. Some employees actually like have online portals that you can access that from. So if you're able to get a hold of that, that's a lot more simple than us just taking their word. So any of these do not, the distributions, did you receive a distribution that met the expectations to the additional tax? That is if somebody used their HSA money to go to McDonald's, you can't do that. So if you see like a thing that says, oh, I went to McDonald's, that's where you're gonna say, you know, the additional 20% does not apply to distributions made on or after. That's not really, but they will get taxed that 20% if on what's the distribution amount, if it's not qualified under that expense there. HSA adjustments, if there's any adjustments during the year, complete the section if it applies to you. This will help us adjust any amounts that are auto carried by the program. Just hit no. Did your coverage change during the tax year, which we are not aware of? Did you or your spouse have separate? You'll know if two spouses bring in two different HSAs and they're only self, or it will have a box check self or one that's for your family. So we know she does not have a family coverage with a high deductible plan and she's not married. And Susan is also not over 55, so this is also not applicable to her. So we're gonna hit no. We're gonna go continue, hit continue again, and it just brings us back out to our adjustments. So now that we know that we have her W-2 in and her HSA, we know that she had Grubhub, which we found the 1099 NEC, which you will find we're going to backtrack a little bit to the 4th page. It's a 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation. So we're going to go up here to this form finder again, and we're going to put 1099 NEC. And it's going to come up and you're going to go ahead and click on it. It brings you straight to the page. So the payer's name is Grubhub Holdings. And I believe that's all that fits in that box. You're going to go ahead and do the address 111 West Washington Street. Please abbreviate because it will not all fit. And then STE 2100. And then the zip code is 60602. The payer's TIN, which would be found also on that 1099 NEC right underneath where you found the Grubhub's holding the information, is going to be 261328794. It will then automatically put Susan's information in, and we are going to go ahead and fill in box 1 of the 3,200. That's what she had. She had no federal tax withheld and no state information. But if she did, you would have that I have an amount in box 5 or 7, and you would just click that area. Hit continue for me. So this is where you will report her business income, a scheduled C. You must create the scheduled C to attach the 1099. So you're going to click on scheduled C and hit continue. If for some odd reason it slips through intake and you have farm income, that automatically disqualifies the person from using a VITA site. So if for some odd reason they come in and they have a farm stand or something, we cannot do that unless they are registered as like a DBA, separate than farm use, because there's different taxes and things that are applicable to farm income. So go ahead and hit continue on Scheduled C. So the business name, this is a little redundant. You're gonna have to put in Grubhub Holdings again. And then you're gonna go ahead and put the payer's TIN in. 8794. The address. They just want to make sure that everything matches and that nothing is going unseen. The zip code of 6062. Oops, 02. Click outside the box and it should say Chicago, Illinois. Now, thankfully, the business ID for us was provided underneath Grubhub's Holdings address, and it says business ID 7222300. But let's say you don't know that. You can click here for the business codes, which brings that right up. Oops. Back. I apologize. This is one little haywire on me here. And go back in. Or you can put food delivery driver here. It looks like it did not save any of my information, so give me a second to put this back in. So you guys can go ahead and put that business code in, or food delivery driver. (60602), which nice is once you get going on this, the system will recognize certain addresses and EINs and automatically pull up this. So typically the first few that you do that are new, you'll have to put all the information in, but if you'll see a lot of Grubhub, once you put that EIN number in, it pulls all the information in, which is great. So you're gonna put food delivery, and you're gonna go ahead and hit continue. So this is where if the person provided any information here at Peace, we have a specific form that they fill out that they get when we know that they've had Grubhub or some sort of type of gig work, as we call it, like Instacart, Uber, stuff like that. Even their own businesses, we hand them this. It gets a generalized list of expenses, what their car is, how many miles they went. Just basic information. This is where we would find everything. For Susan's case here, we do not have any, so we can go ahead, scroll to the bottom and just hit continue. And we'll see Grubhub Holdings is in. She has no expenses. Her income is the $3,200. We'll go ahead and hit continue there. So now that we have the W-2 and her 1099 NEC with an attached Scheduled C in, we now will go to the next form, which is a 1098 tuition student. So we know that Susan went to school. And we are going to go 1098T up in that form finder. It just helps us get to the exact location without having to search. We know that it's for Susan, so we're going to click on Susan. Continue. Hold on 1 second for me. My computer's a little slow. There we go. Did this student receive Form 1098T from an educational institution? We know she did. Did this student receive Form 1098T from the institution with box 2 or box 7 checked? So no, none of those. So we're going to hit no, and we're going to go continue. So then we put the institutional name, which we know based off from the 1098T is Lemoyne College. We're gonna go down to the address here and we're gonna type in 1419 Salt Springs Road. The zip code is 13214. And the employer identification number, which on the 1098T says filer's employer identification number, it's 1505458841. Once you have all that information in, you're going to go ahead and hit continue for me. So we know based off from it that she paid out of pocket the $1,800. So we're going to put that under tuition paid. We know she received no grants, one, because we know she said she paid for it for graduate school, and two, box 5 would be filled in. Now, let's say the tuition paid didn't include any books, that was just for her courses. She does need to provide you with receipts already tallied up of any books or qualifying extra educational expenses that she needed for college, and that would go right here under other qualified expenses. We'll hit continue. It will bring you to this page and show you that she went to Lemoyne for $1,800 for the year. So these are the questions that you're familiar with based off our other practice labs and some of the practice labs that you do for your basic testing. The same will follow for advanced. Has the American Opportunity Tax Credit been claimed for 4 years prior? We know that she's a graduate student, so she's already claimed 4 years, so you have to put yes. She's passed a bachelor's, she's going to school for her master's or even her doctorate's, depending on what she's going for. Was the student enrolled at least halfway on the half of the academic? That would be box 8 on the 1098, which is not checked, so we're going to say no. Did the student complete the first 4 years? We know she's a graduate student, so we're going to say yes. And did the student have a felony drug conviction before the end? We're going to say no, based off from questions that you will ask, especially if you see grant in 5. In New York State, you can't receive grants or scholarships if you have a felony drug conviction. That's going to be your most easiest way to know. If you happen to see that box 5 is not filled in, it's just a quick phone call and saying, you know, they asked the question, I need to know if you were the person who has the 1098T had a felony drug conviction. So go ahead and hit continue now that we know that's no. This will come up and you need to choose what the best the lifetime learning credit is the best. So you need to click on that. The American Opportunity Tax Credit isn't even there because she can no longer qualify for that credit being a graduate student. So we'll click it, make sure there's a green arrow there, and just hit continue. And then hit continue again, and we're back out. So we know that based off from our scenario and our next form, which is an IRA contribution form, 5498. We can go to the form finder here, and what you're going to put it in as is IRA deduction. Or I meant contribution. It's 5498. You're going to go ahead and click on that for me. This is where you are going to enter the 2,300 that she contributed. And we're going to know based off from Susan's W-2 that she does not have a retirement plan through her work. She is not covered by a retirement plan. That box was not checked. So we're going to say Susan is not covered by a retirement plan. Continue. Go ahead and continue again. That's an extra credit for contributing to a traditional IRA. You're allowed up to $6,000 for the year. If you're older than, I believe it's 65, it's an extra $1,000, which makes it $7,000. So to want to state that I apologize for going a little ahead of myself. So we will continue. I apologize for that. I'm going to get back into that IRA for us. We don't have anything else on the form that we need to report, like the FMV account, the 17,500. That's not information that we have to put in. So we're just going to go ahead and continue out of that because the IRS has this, and due to not it being a Roth IRA or anything like that, it doesn't make it out of scope and or knowing what you can and what is applicable for coverage. So you're just going to put those numbers in and get out of there. So we're going to go to our next form in our scenario, which ends up being that HSA, which we already did. So we're going to go skip right to the 1098 mortgage interest statement. So in the form finder, you're going to put 1098 and you'll see mortgage interest statement. You're going to click on that. So this is a little new. So you're going to say, did you receive the 1098 form? If the address on the form does not match the address that the person gave you, that means this is a rental property. We cannot do rental properties here. Some people own more than one home, so I guess you would have to, like, if they own a home in Florida or something, but you would see that's in Florida. If they have two homes in New York, like it's a camp or something, you just need to verify that it's a camp. It's not their main home and that it's not a rental property. So the key word is that if it's a rental property, you cannot use it. So you're going to go ahead and hit yes, because we do see that it is her home. You're also going to say, yes, I've used this loan to purchase, build, or upgrade my home. And you're just going to fill out the information, which ends up being Chase Bank. Kudos to her for getting a mortgage through Chase. And then you're just going to fill the boxes out as you see fit. So box 1 is the 5,700. We see in box 2 that she has an outstanding principal of 49,000. Some of these are not going to be filled out on an actual 1098. Some places fill them in, some places don't. As long as you have the mortgage interest, that's great. That's all we need for our end. You're going to put 02/12/2015. And you're going to see in box 10, oh, wait, you got to click 7 here. Address of property securing mortgage is the same as the payer's borrower's address. This is extremely important because you're going to skip 8 if it's not 7. And if you have to fill out 8, that means it's a different place. It's either a camp or it's a rental property. If it's a rental property, we don't do those. So you're going to scroll down to 10 and you'll see real estate taxes. You're going to click in that box and fill out the $5,800 that we see there in other. And we have finished our 1098 mortgage interest. So you're going to hit continue. Hit continue again. Everything's a continue, or a continue back in the state. So if you don't come out to the main page here, you just got to hit continue. So we also have a few other things. So we're on the deductions page. If you go into our next form, which is the 1099-C, that is cancellation of debt. So I see that right here under adjustments, there's we can do it there, or you can go here, 1099-C, and cancellation of debts comes up. I just happen to know where that is. All they ask for is the person who allowed the debt. So it's going to be Bailey's Building. And it asks for the creditor's identification number. It's going to be 221. And there's 6 zeros there, just so you know. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the amount that was canceled. This is considered income for them because they didn't have to pay back what it was. It's basically like they were forgiven, but you have to consider it as income. You're all done there, and you're going to hit continue. Continue. So I did purposely do this so that way that you guys could learn a little bit here. We found at the end of this scenario, and sometimes if we're waiting on things and you just put the information in, we found the Grubhub expenses. So we're going to go ahead on the left-hand side under the federal section income and click on that scheduled C, just like I showed you. This brings you back to the scheduled C that we created. And we're going to hit that little pencil edit. This brings us back into our scheduled C. This is important just in case somebody says, hey, I forgot this. You now know how to go in and edit and add things. It happens quite frequently. Oh, I forgot that I have cost of goods sold. That's where you're going to put that. Or I forgot that I paid my taxes, my LLC tax, which we don't do here, but just in case they had a taxes or some type of motor vehicle taxes that are not related to their vehicle, you're going to put it there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do car and truck expenses as that's the first one. So we're going to go ahead and put it in. We're going to put 2018 Dodge Charger. We see that it was placed in service on 3/1/2023. Now this hasn't been changed, so I am going to say this. There is going to be nothing that goes in business miles before 7/1. They haven't removed this. It should all be in one box, which is going to be the second box, business miles after 6/30, because last year they split the mileage rate. So it did go up, and that business miles after 6/30 is the correct mileage rate. So you're going to put the business miles as 3,530. We know, stating off from her, commuting miles was 1,440, and her personal miles or other was 5,155, giving her a grand total of 10,125 miles driven for the year. You do have to answer some questions here. So check if you or your spouse has another vehicle available for personal use. We knew based off from other that she does not, so we are not going to click that. Check if your vehicle is available for personal use during off-duty hours, which we know it was. Does she have evidence to support her deduction, which she does? And if yes, is this evidence written? Yes, it was. So now that we have that in, we're going to hit continue, and we're going to hit continue again. So there's a few ways that you can put this in. I prefer being specific on these expenses. So you're going to go ahead to other expenses, and you're going to put a description in. And you're going to put cell phone. And we know that she did 112. I do want to state that if they have a cell phone and they're trying to claim their whole cell phone bill on it, you need to make sure that this is specifically used for the business. No personal incoming phone calls come in. If so, they can only deduct half of it. So half of whatever their yearly bill is, or the percentage in which they use it towards the business. So that might be, you might have to say, they might say, oh, I only use it like 15% a month. You'll just have to figure that out in your calculations and figure out what their bill is a month. and then you can go from there. We're going to go ahead and hit continue. I know I have another expense. We're going to hit add a Schedule C other expense and put cell phone accessories. Because in New York, if they don't have, they have to be hands-free, so they might need it on their dashboard for that in order to call a client, or for Google Maps possibly. So we know that she said she spent $62 on accessories. So we're gonna go ahead and continue. If there is general expenses, you can hit that and you'll find a list of things like commissions and fees, advertising, insurance, any mortgage interest, which we don't do here. So that is something that should never be filled out. Other interests, if they have credit cards for their business, you can do that. Office expenses, paper, pens, ink, anything you need for your office. If they rent a property, like a building or a place that they conduct business, repairs and maintenance, they cannot, based off from IRS rules, they can't, if they claim mileage, they can't claim the repairs and maintenance on their vehicle. But let's say they own a lawn mowing company, they can claim those repairs and maintenance on their equipment. So that's where that would go. Any supplies such as, like I had mentioned, if you need yarn, if you're in Etsy or something, this is where that would go. Any taxes and licenses applicable, like any DBA filing fees if they just started. I'm trying to think of some other fees, like Grubhub has some fees. If it says fees, that's where it'll go. Meals. I wouldn't get into the whole meal thing, because they would have to have proof that they took a client out and discuss business, or conducted business over a meal. So and you're only allowed up to 50% anyways. And then we don't do wages here at a VITA site. If they have employees, they have to go to a pay preparer. So go ahead and continue. Now that we have all of our expenses in, we're going to go ahead and continue again. And it brings us back to the main form. Now you can see their total income was $3,200. Their total expenses was $2,486, bringing their net income to $714 that they can be taxed on. So we have one more thing. We noticed under the itemized deductions that Miss Susan Oliver made a donation to Believers Chapel. So we are going to go to that form finder and put charity deductions. And it's going to be cash gifts charity. And you are going to put the charity's name, which we know is Believers Chapel. A description, which Believers Chapel is a church. The donation, we know that she did it on 12/31. If they do not give you a donation, I would say around Christmas. That's when most people do it. And it only allows one date. Amount donated of $500. Now you're only allowed up to 250, but you could put the 500 in there and it's automatically just going to do the donation amount, what is allowed. So don't worry about that. Go ahead and hit continue. Continue again. So we have gotten the contribution in, the charity contribution. So that brings us to our last thing on our list for the federal government. All of our forms are in, her W-2, her HSA with medical deductions, her 1099 NEC, her Schedule C with expenses, her cancellation of debt, and her education credit, her 1098T, her IRA contribution, her 1098, her 1099-C of debt cancellation, and her charity. So we know all of that is in. Hit continue for me, hit continue again, and it will bring you out to your main page. What I want you to do is, now that we know everything is in, you're going to go to your left-hand side, scroll all the way down till you see health insurance. You're going to hover over it and click it. So you don't have to keep on clicking, click, 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 continue, continue, continue until you get to this page. This is just a simple way of getting there, because we know all of our forms are in. So reported on 1095A, this is the marketplace health insurance premiums through like Obamacare, not Medicaid or Medicare, or like employee-based insurance. So you're gonna hit no, hit continue. And we're to the state. To the state, we're gonna go ahead and edit. And we're going to go to credits, state-specific credits, hit begin. You're going to scroll all the way to the bottom to real property tax relief credit IT 229. That is the star credit. You have to answer questions. The first one was she was a resident. The second one is she did occupy the residence for 6 months. We know based off from the taxes that she was eligible for star. So this question is confusing, like I have stated before in the basic. She didn't have rental income, so the question is going to be yes, because she doesn't have rental income, and it wasn't over 20% that she received in rental income. So this question is just going to say yes. If it was no, that means she's receiving rental income over the 20% limit. So go ahead and fill in your resident information. So she resided in the property 365 days, 100% of the year. We know based off her taxes on that 1098 that she had the 50, I believe it was 5,800 in let me see here. Yep, it was 5,800 in property taxes. So that's property and school combined. If they have village, that also needs to be included. Some people do, some people don't. We know that her star credit based off from the scenario was $420. You're going to put this was the same residence on the federal tax return and just hit continue, and then continue, and then back. It's that whole back in New York. And then once you get to the main page, you'll scroll down and exit New York return. We are now completed with this tax return. We're going to hit continue, and it's going to bring you to your 1040, which you can print. You can hit continue again. These are standardized questions here that you need to do and fill out. She does want a federal refund for direct deposit, e-file direct deposit. New York State is going to be e-file direct deposit. We need that payer's TIN here at Peace and NITA. It's so that we can save their information for the next 3 years, and there is a site. So get used to saving the taxpayer's PIN. And if there's a spouse, I don't need the EROs, I need the taxpayers and the spouses. Typically, it's a 1 with the last 4 of their social security number. You're going to hit continue here. This doesn't matter. You're going to bypass this. This is if you were a paid preparer, which we are not. We charge nothing. So hit continue. She wants a savings account with the name under Sears Bank, Sear Bank. So you're going to type that in. We know it's a savings account. We're going to pull the refund, do the routing number, get in the habit of actually typing in that routing number. 6, because it will tell you, or if I put in a different one, it'll tell me it's not matching, which I did purposely. If I was to continue, it will tell me these don't match. Bank account number is 684001001. 684001001. We're going to scroll to the bottom and hit continue. She did not provide a driver's license, but you do need a driver's license or a non-driver's license ID in order. We need proper photo identification, but since this is made up, we don't have a driver's license, so we're just gonna click that no driver's license or state ID, click continue, continue, and then continue, and it brings us to our submission. These two custom questions are gonna be where, the first one's gonna be where you need that taxpayer's PIN and the date, and that they're A, declined or accepted it, to have their information be pulled forward for years coming. The second one is based off from your site and the questions that we have them answer on that intake quality review form. The 13614-C, that's where you would answer those. And then obviously your submission page. We do ask that you scroll to the bottom and hit mark ready for review. Some places, like here at Peace, we have different return status tags, which you'll get used to if you're volunteering here, that we ask you to click. Other than that, we have finished our basic return for our advanced return for the year. And then we have 2 more coming up. So if you go ahead to Peace, you'll find those trainings there and the practice labs that go with them. So feel free to join us. All right, I think that's all for now, and we thank you for coming.